no one wants to work for $25 an hour anymore with no future upside.
Right.
They want to know, how can they make more money? How can they participate in the upside? If they beat budgets, how can they get paid more? So making sure that you're training them, you're empowering them, and they see a clear line to their goals, and you consistently tie that back to their real goals outside of money.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe.
What's up, everybody? Mike Rickman here, founder of paintergrowth.com, and you're listening to a live coaching call episode of the Painter Growth Podcast. And I have my friend here, client of ours at Painter Growth here, Maddox. Maddox, where are you from again?
I'm from Maine.
Maine.
Yeah.
Who's from Maine these days? You know?
We got what's his name? The horror guy that writes those books. Stephen King. That's
Okay.
about it. That's
Perfect.
about it, though.
Perfect. He's like an A-list celebrity these days, right?
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So you're client of Painter Growth here. I definitely want to get into some coaching stuff, some stuff that the listeners can take away actionable insights and tidbits from. But just give us a little background of you. Kind of what was your painting business like before you joined Painter Growth, and what's kind of like the last few months been since you've been around?
Yeah, definitely. So we actually started out as a different business. So the name wasn't always Crafted Painters. I started out with a buddy. It was H&T Builders. And we were doing construction. So we were doing remodeling, roofing, tile, flooring, siding, that sort of thing. And we had decided that we always wanted to niche down to something, and we couldn't quite decide what we wanted to do. We were being pulled in all these different directions, and we liked doing all of it. But I ended up coming upon your company, Painter Growth. And I thought it was a great opportunity to niche down into something. We've done a lot of painting, and I really enjoyed the painting. So I ended up joining, going through your course, doing a bunch of stuff, and just niching down to that and just really enjoying building a painting company that focuses just on painting. So
awesome. And what have you seen in terms of like changes in your business since getting started with us?
Yeah, so obviously before, since we were doing so many things, it was hard marketing for everything. So just niching down to painting, you guys showed us how to do the marketing super well. So with the Facebook, generating leads a lot easier. Being a master of one versus a jack of all trades is just a lot easier way to go about it. So the marketing, the branding, the setting up estimates, the doing estimates, you guys have great modules on that, and it's really been nice having a hand there, showing us the way.
Awesome. So now that you've kind of niched down, you've focused on just painting, you're telling me before that now you're looking to kind of continue scaling up marketing. You have some positions that you're recruiting for. What's the first thing you want to kind of tackle today? What's the biggest challenge that you're facing right now in your business?
Yeah, so the marketing was the biggest problem. Just generating leads, making sure we had consistent workflow. That was the biggest problem. But the Facebook ads has helped us tremendously. The job site marketing, and just those have helped us a lot. So I would say that's not much of a problem anymore. I'd say that's pretty manageable now, and we know how to scale that and do pretty good with that.
Yeah, that's a pretty sweet thing. In just accomplishment right there. Like lead flow is no longer a problem.
Yeah.
Right. Most painters are like, what? That I can't even believe that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just because in Maine, there's a bunch of old heads, so they just don't really know how to tackle the marketing very well. So
That's everywhere though.
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
I mean, there's some areas where there's more competition, but I mean, in general, if you know how to get leads in one place, it kind of works fairly ubiquitously.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's been a huge help, huge game changer. But recently we've been focusing a lot on hiring. So bringing on some A players, as you guys refer to them, and then just building a team that can really do good production. cares about the customer satisfaction, and that's been the biggest thing that we've been working on so far.
So how many painters do you have on staff right now?
Right now, I actually have none. So I had 2 guys working for me. They ended up going into the carpentry field. They went to a big corporation. So I've got work lined up coming up soon. It's a bit tough with Christmas and then the new year. I mean, nobody wants to do a lot of stuff right now, start this project. So it worked out pretty well. It gave me enough time to bring on some guys. So I've done 6 interviews in the past 2 days, and those have gone really well. I've got
You've
a
been
few
following
more.
like our interview structure.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, that's been a big help. That's guided me through that because I haven't done a ton of interviews. So having a proven system there that shows you the way has helped a lot for sure.
Yeah. So what do you feel like you need the most help with then when it comes to interviewing and recruiting and finding these guys and ramping them up?
Yeah, so just making sure that they are who they say they are and that they're going to show up and do what they're saying they're going to do. That's just probably my biggest worry, and making sure that they're representing the company well. But besides that, the process has been pretty good so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's always big, right? Like so many times, probably every single person listening to this has tried hiring someone who didn't show up, or they show up stoned, or they show up one day, or you pay them and then they're gone,
Yeah.
right? So how do you filter out that type of behavior ahead of time so that doesn't happen, or at least prevent that from happening as much as possible? And basically there would be 4 things that you can do to try to prevent that. And it's not going to get rid of it every single time, but if you try to do these 4 things as good as you can, then you'll at least really decrease that chances of people not showing up and you really understanding who you're hiring. The first one is asking really good interview questions. And what I mean by this is asking them questions, not just having them give you answers, but asking them questions about past behavior and because past behavior will indicate future behavior. So tell me a time when you had to work really, really hard. Tell me a time when you, were faced with like an ethical dilemma. There's some other ways that you can phrase them. This is just kind of off the top of my head. Tell me a time when your boss told you one thing that you knew was wrong, but just like, how did you deal with that? And just kind of asking them a lot of questions about their past behavior and just seeing how they've responded to things. The next is references. You want to, no matter what, at least talk to one reference, preferably a previous employer. And there's 2 things that you can do on this. So one is like when you're talking to the candidate, don't just say like, hey, can I have your references? And I want to call your references. But the way that you phrase it to the candidate is, when I call your previous boss, say, when I call Joe, what is he going to tell me about you? Right. And what you're saying there is you're future pacing them. And you're not saying, if I call Joe, you're saying, when I call Joe, what will he tell me about you? Gotcha. And then you're just like, oh shit, he's actually going to call Joe. And I don't want to lie because he's going to double check it. It's like Joe's going to say like, I was late a bunch, but I'm trying to be better, or whatever. Yeah. So hopefully that pulls out the honesty, and then you do actually have to call Joe. You have to call their boss and do a reference check. How were they? Any red flags? Like, would you hire them again? Why did they leave? Those types of questions. And if you can't get a reference, then probably red flag. Yeah. Yeah. The third is so good questions on past behavior, references. The third is professionalism. So the more serious that you take and you display your job opportunity to them, the more serious they're going to take it. So how professional are you on your interview? Are you writing down notes? Are you following a structure? Do you have an onboarding document? Do you have them sign an independent contractor agreement or a employment agreement? Do you have training protocols? Do you have an onboarding procedure, right? Like, how professional are you? And the higher that you can level yourself up on that professionalism, the more serious they're going to take the job. And then the fourth and final thing is onboarding and training, right? What does training look like? How are you getting them to win? How are you making sure that they're on the same page? And I'm actually going to combine this fourth with compensation model, right? You want to know what their goals are, how much money they're trying to make, why they're trying to make that much money, where they want to be in 5 years from now, so that you can try to provide them the best employment opportunity possible for their goals. Because they don't want to no one wants to work for $25 an hour anymore with no future upside.
Right.
They want to know, how can they make more money? How can they participate in the upside? If they beat budgets, how can they get paid more? So making sure that you're training them, you're empowering them, and they see a clear line to their goals, and you consistently tie that back to their real goals outside of money.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So that last point you were making there, how would you go about streamlining that process to them and outlining what that looks like to them? Yeah, does that make sense?
So say I'm talking to, say I just hired you, right? You want to work for me. I go, all right, Maddox, how much money do you want to make a month?
25.
25.
Oh, a month?
Yeah.
$4,000.
You want to make $4,000 a month. All right. Let's figure out how you can make $4,000. Well, that's pretty low. That's like 48K a year. I think say Painter wants to make 7K a month, right? Like aggressive, right? I want to make 7K a month. Most painting contractors, most business owners would be like, there's no way I can pay you 7K a month, right? You're not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they produce that, if they make enough production, if they complete enough production for you, there's no reason why they can't make 7,000. So in order to be able to have a compensation model like this, where you're paying them based on performance and based on production, you need to know your numbers. You need to know how many production hours every job is, and you need to keep track of your labor hours per job. So if you're paying them $25 an hour, but you're paying them piece rate, and they want to make $7,000, they need to produce $65 hours per week of production. So now their goal is to produce 65 hours a week. If they can produce 65 hours a week, that means that they can make $7,000 a month. 7,000 a month is $84K a year. Pretty good as a staff painter. So now it's your responsibility as the business owner to make sure they have the jobs lined up and available and ready to go, and that you're communicating the budgets with them so that they know what they need to complete, and then training them to make sure that they have the skill to be able to complete it, right? Any one of those things can be a failure point. And if you don't have enough work for them, if you don't communicate the expectations and how big and the budgets of the job so they know what they need to complete by the end of the week properly, and then if you also don't help them level up their skill so they're able to complete, on time and on budget, they're able to complete production quickly. Any three of those things going wrong will impact their ability to make that 7K, thereby breaking your promise to them.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. That makes a lot of sense on how to streamline that and, show them what it would take to make that.
Yeah. Ultimately, we want to keep labor. Like if they're an in-house, if they're W-2, you want to keep that around like 35, maybe 40% of work, but say it's 35%. So if you go 7,000 divided by 0.35, you're looking at 20K a month. So basically you need that one painter to produce 20K a month. If it's a crew of 2, they're producing 40K a month. So that's a lot of production for a crew of 2, basically like a $5,000 job a week, but it's not impossible.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not with the lead flow that's coming in. I mean, there's quite a variety of jobs, but you can definitely far exceed that with higher tier work as well. I mean, once you're getting up into painting commercial and near commercial projects, I mean, those are, they go longer, they're more profitable in the long run. So definitely.
Yeah. And charge rate's also a significant number there, right? So when I say charge rate, I mean, what is the average hourly rate that your company is charging out? So if you have a $10,000 job and it takes 100 hours of labor, that's $100 an hour charge rate, right? And so if your business on average is like over $85 an hour charge rate, you can pay your painters more. You can pay them more than $25 an hour. The way to kind of calculate that is just take 35% of your charge rate and pay them that per hour. So if your charge rate is $100, then you should be paying your painters about 35 an hour on a piece rate system, right? If it's $85 an hour, then That's about $29.75 or $30 an hour. And so it's not that you're just paying them that flat rate, but they have the ability to make that if they hit and exceed budgets.
Gotcha. So that ties in pretty good to another question I have for you. So when it comes to residential projects, and being able to charge that rate to be able to pay the painters well, like you're talking $35, $40 an hour, what does your process look like for increasing the value of your company to be able to charge more when going to these residential projects? Like inherently just being able to get the customer to pay more.
For sure. Like, how do you get them to accept a higher bid when they can get someone, down the street or some unregistered company to do it for half price? Right. So this is the difference between price and value. And I'm sure everyone here has lost a job to someone coming in and doing a half price, right? Some solo painter, no license, no insurance, who's come in and does it for $25 an hour plus material. And those aren't the people that we're competing against, right? We're competing against the professional organizations, the ones who, the businesses who are running real shops, who have real businesses. Those are the people that we're really competing against because those are the customers we want. How we're able to raise our prices is and provide a premium priced service, and commend previous prices is by providing a premium service. And painting walls is painting walls, right? There's not much premium you can do when it comes to painting walls. Okay, you can cut a straighter line than your competitor, right? You can put a completely perfect mill coverage thickness, whatever. You spray everything, you roll everything, you get a glass leg coating, whatever. I don't care if you're the best painter in your area. If you're the best painter in your area, you're probably not getting the best price, because the best salesperson is getting the best price. Right. So that's the difference. It's not about being that best painter, because that type of like 1% improvements don't matter to the average homeowner. Painting walls and trim and doors is not rocket science, right? So how we command higher prices is by being a better salesperson, and having a professional presentation. Before the estimate, do your setup call, be professional, have a script, follow it, ask the important questions, ask about needs, ask about timeline, ask about decision makers. When it comes to after that, make sure they have text message automations, email automations, reminders, have a great website so they can browse before and after pictures, and then show up to the estimate exactly on time. Like not a minute late, not a minute early, exactly on time. If you're going to be 1 minute late, call the custom homeowner. Hey, Joanne, I'm running 1 minute late. I'll be there at 6:01. Sorry about that. Right? That is the next level of professionalism. From there, structured sales presentation. You want literature that's professional. It is so easy to get professional literature right now. You go on Fiverr, you pay $40 to get a professionally designed brochure. You go on Vistaprint, you pay $50 to get 50 of them printed. All of a sudden, you have a professional brochure. It costs $90 to get 50 of them. You bring it into an estimate, you show them your portfolio, sit down at the table, ask them about their needs, what they're looking for, their past experiences, timeline, what's important to them, what's not important to them. You do a full walk around, you explain your process, you go to your pricing, you go back into the homeowner's house, present the job to them, answer all their questions, show them the price. If the price is $10,000 or the price is $12,000, that shouldn't make a difference to their decision if you've done everything up to that point. Right? Because you're not competing against the guy that came in and bid 6,000. What's important to them: insurance, the zero VOC thing. Maybe they have newborns upstairs. Maybe we had a client who won a job because he asked the client what was important to them. And he said he found out that they had newborn twins and they napped from 12 till 2. And the homeowner just didn't want anyone in the house from 12 till 2. And so he asked the question, what's important? And so on the proposal, he wrote down, we will be out of the house from 12 till 2. We'll take an extended lunch so that your twins can sleep. He won the job because that's what was important, not the price. Right? And so as you do more of these estimates and you maintain your professionalism, you start tracking your charge rate and your close rate. right? Both those metrics. What's your charge rate? Basically, what's your hourly charge out rate on all of these jobs that you're winning? What's the hourly charge out rate on the ones that you're losing? And then what's your close rate? You can, if you try to keep your close rate around 40%, it's probably the sweet spot. If it's above 40%, try raising your prices. If it's below 40%, potentially you have to either lower your prices or work on your sales presentation.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's really good advice. That's a really good step-by-step thing. Looking at the metrics, I think, will help me a lot as well. And it's probably just a quantity thing, just doing more estimates, getting the data, seeing what it says, and then adjusting from there.
That is so important, right? Like, so internally, this is some inside knowledge for Painter Growth. We have an outbound appointment setter, okay? And so he calls leads and he sets up appointments for my sales guys. And one of my sales guys was saying, he's like, hey, the calls that our setter's making, he's like, they're not quite as qualified, or he's not asking these like financial qualifiers, these questions. And so I just pulled up the data and I said, hey, look, his show up rate is right within spec. The close rate on his appointments that he sets is actually above. So based on the data, his sets are great, but based on your feeling, there's not.
Right.
So like what's more valuable, data or feelings? Right? Numbers don't have feelings. And that's why we always make decisions based on the numbers. What's your close rate? What's your charge rate? And then make decisions based on that.
Yeah. Perfect. And then when it comes to tracking those, do you guys do that all through drip jobs? Is that how you guys recommend keeping track of the rates?
So you can do that actually through drip jobs. If you're using them for estimating and production rates, I'm pretty sure Tanner's got a charge rate thing in there. But no, I just typically use, like we have that spreadsheet, that job costing spreadsheet as part of the program. And basically, have you seen that?
It's a job costing. I think I have.
GSR, it's in the GSR spreadsheet right at the very start. Anyway, I think the third tab's job costing, and every job that you do has a line, right? Name the job, what's the value, how many hours, how much was labor, how much was material, paint materials, and then you get your gross margin, your contribution margin, all hourly margins, all that stuff, charge rate. So I just do that. And my favorite thing of the week when I was running my painting business is that Sunday afternoon from like 2 till 4, I would do my finances. I would do my job costing. I would input my receipts. I'd calculate my labor, and I would figure out how much money I made that week. Right. And that was like my favorite thing to do of the week, because that's when I got to see how much money I made.
Right.
You could see like, okay, here's my charge rate on these jobs. Here's my charge rate on these jobs. And like, here's how much money I made. Here's where I need to work on. This crew's a little bit higher. How do I fix that? And I got to make a plan on what I needed to work on the following week.
Gotcha. Definitely. No, I definitely think that that's the next step for me. And you've outlined it beautifully. So I'd like to steer the conversation towards another topic. So when it comes to subs versus W-2 or versus employees, how do you guys feel about the difference between them, and what are your guys' ideas on those?
Yeah, that's a good question. I get that a lot. And the unfortunate answer is that there's no best, right? You can be very successful with both of them. I have a friend of the company who has been on the podcast. She's doing 6 or 7 million a year, completely subs, right? We have Jason Paris, who's in Minneapolis. He does 10 million a year, and he's 60% subs, 40% in-house. So the way that I see it, the pros and cons, and this is up for debate. With a W-2, with an in-house, you get lower, like cheaper. It's like more like 35% instead of 50%. So it's more affordable. You get more control of the customer experience because they're only working for you and they 100% report to you. However, the bad side of that, or like the con of that, is that you are now responsible for them. You're responsible to keep them busy. If they are slow, if you don't have work one week, you still have to pay them. You owe them a job, right? And so hopefully you get to the point in your business and with our help that you don't need any more leads because you have enough, and you can confidently hire in-house employees because you know how to get your own work. Now for subs, they're going to be more expensive. They're going to be closer to 50% of the job just for labor, plus your materials on top of that. So your gross margin now goes down to about 40% or 35%, depending on how much you spend on materials. You have less control of the end product because they're going to have their own tools. They're going to have their own systems. It's going to be harder to manage them and like give specific times, like, okay, you need to be here at like 8:30. So just like less oversight and control. And they might do things a little bit different than what you promised, right? Like say you like to patch, sand, spot prime, and then paint. Maybe they don't spot prime. Maybe they do the first coat before they patch. Maybe they prime with, or maybe they hit the spackle patches with wall paint instead of primer, and you recommend using primer. Like, so there's like different technical aspects, and you really want to make sure that whichever you're using in-house or subs, that they're providing the homeowner with the job that you sold. Right. So there's less control. You can mitigate that. And you also can't make a sub. You cannot make a 1099 wear your shirt and your logo. You can ask them to, but just the nature of it, according to the government, you cannot make them wear your logo. But you can tell them not to have their branding. So hopefully, you have good subs who are good communicators and they're happy to rep your brand and they're happy to take their truck magnets off when they pull up. But, I always use in-house employees. You can probably tell I'm a little biased. I prefer in-house employees, but I don't think either is bad. I like the better margins. I never had an issue finding painters, training them, or having work for them. So I rarely use subs, just kind of on some of the bigger projects.
Gotcha. So I feel like when you're talking about the subcontractors, that you view them a little bit differently than I do. I don't think that the subcontractors are as detached from the business as you might. I don't think my subs don't work for anybody else. Like their main focus is with me, and keeping them busy 40 hours a week and that sort of thing. So from your experience with subs, it's just not like that.
So that's a little dangerous, though. If you're the only employer of the sub, the government could contest that and make them reclassify them as a W-2. And if that happened, if they got audited and they found out that 100% of their revenue in a year came from you and they're classified as a 1099, they get reclassified as a W-2, and you would now have to pay employment taxes on all their earnings, all that stuff. So in subs, in the sense that I'm talking about, is basically one person or someone who has multiple painters or crews who you can call and say, hey, I need this job done. Can you help me out? Or basically they can deploy other painters and you don't have control over who goes there or how it gets done.
Gotcha.
That's kind of like the definition of a subcontractor. And I'm up in Canada and they have very specific rules about it. So in order to be a subcontractor, the business owner they can't control basically who does it or how it's done. And they can themselves subcontract it again if they wanted to. That's all part of the thing. So there's lots of that single person acting as a 1099 who you have complete control over. I would classify that as an in-house employee. That just the business relationship is a subcontractor model, and that's not necessarily the right way to do it, but it's as long as no one's calling the IRS on you, you're probably fine.
Right, exactly. Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I was just a little confused up on that one, but
I'm not a tax specialist, by the way.
Yeah.
I recommend independent counsel.
Yeah.
You should ask your accountant, though, right? Legitimately, if you think that this person is only working for you 100% of the time, all their income is coming from you and they're 1099, just ask your accountant, is this cool? Can I do this? What are the potential tax implications? Am I doing anything wrong? Because I'm more familiar with the Canadian market, and maybe it's totally fine in the States, but I imagine it's fairly similar.
Yeah, not to throw too much shade at Maine, but it's rather a common thing up here.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's common in a lot of places. It's easier. It's an easier relationship, and the reason why the IRS and the CRA in Canada have rules against it is because there's no employee protections against 1099s. So it allows employers to kind of take advantage of people by classifying them as 1099s, but treating them as W-2s.
Right.
Because they don't have benefits. They don't have EI or whatever you guys call it. Like they don't have unemployment insurance. They don't have 401ks, right? You're not contributing to any of that. And if they are working as an employee, they should get those things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So something to think about. Ask your accountant, ask your lawyer, and obtain independent counsel. Yeah. But I liked employees, the employee model, the in-house. We had great culture. Like I would take my guys out to breakfast every second Friday. There was this great breakfast joint. They did $10 breakfast, included coffee. So there'd be like 14, 15 of us. We'd all have coffee. It cost me like $170 after tip. And we would just tell the homeowner every second Friday that like we weren't going to be there till like 8:30. So we'd get there at like 7 for breakfast. We do like announcements. We do like a little like kind of roundtable meeting where we talk about like who was the highest producer. Sometimes we do like funny awards and things like that. People have a great time and then get to work.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I like that idea. That's a good idea. Definitely.
Yeah, you got to get that team first.
Yeah, I do.
Sweet. So we talked about basically recruiting. Didn't really talk about. We talked about making sure painters show up. We talked about independent contractors versus in-house. What else do you want to jam about today?
We can jam about some. So let's talk about some marketing. Why not? Let's dive into some of that. So, I'd like to get some of your thoughts on just like a few key factors of marketing. Just to make sure that I'm touching on all of those, and just to get some of your thoughts on those again.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, so you've done. What did you say you've done? A couple 100,000 this year.
Yeah.
And what do you want to do next year?
$500,000.
Okay. What's your average job size?
About. Let me pull it up real quick.
Whenever we talk about marketing, I always open up with the numbers, right? What's the reality? Because we could talk about Facebook ads, we could talk about GLSAs, we could talk about door-to-door, we could talk about whatever. But if we don't know the numbers of your specific business, it's impossible to know where to start.
Yeah. So about 11,000.
$11,000 average job size?
Yeah. So it's been mostly some big residential ones, just full on house repaints.
Yeah.
Is what we've been trying to tackle.
Do you think that trend is gonna keep up next year?
Hopefully.
All right. So that's huge. Let's bring it down a little bit. Let's say the average job size is $7,000.
Sure.
I think that's pretty healthy. If you have a $7,000 average job size, we do the math around that. And then if it is 11, then you're way above your goal, right? So you want to hit 500K. So go 500,000 divided by 7,000. We're looking at 500,000 divided by 7,000 is 71 jobs. All right, divided by 12, you're looking at 6 jobs a month. So what's your close rate on estimates?
Close rate. I do not have the close rates. I need to keep a track of the close rates and that, but I would estimate roughly about 35%.
Okay, perfect. So that's 17 estimates a month, right? Do you know what your lead slippage rate is? So how many leads do not turn into estimates?
Yeah, that's been about. So out of 10 estimates that we get, or out of 10 leads, we probably set about 6 appointments.
Okay. So 40% slippage. That's fine.
Yeah.
So out of those 17 estimates, we need to do 17 times 1.4 is 24 leads a month. Right, so 24 qualified leads a month. Divide that by 4.3, we need about 6 leads a week. So that's not a crazy amount, right?
No.
And I'm a big fan of like simple is better, right? So let's look at your past work. So these $11,000 jobs, what lead source have most of them come from?
Facebook has definitely been the biggest contributor.
Facebook ads.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Facebook ads.
And do you know your cost per lead on Facebook or cost per estimate on Facebook?
Yeah,
Yeah, because you're running that campaign that we set up for you, right?
yes, I am, and that's been performing extremely well. Very, very well. Okay, so the cost per result is about $15 cost per click. So what metric were you looking for?
Cost per lead.
Cost per lead?
Go like last 30 days.
Okay. Yeah, about $15 per lead is what I'm getting.
Okay. And how much are you spending a day on Facebook ads in total?
30
$30 a day. Okay.
Yep.
So I got about 2 leads a day. So $15 a lead. And it takes times 1.4, right? Because so 15 times 1.4, basically $21 an estimate,
Yeah.
right? And it takes about 3 estimates to book a job. So about $63 a job. $63 of Facebook ads per job. And that $63 is booking you $11,000.
No, it's not 11,000. I don't know where that number came from. I must have just pulled that out of my ass way too hard. But
Okay.
the rest of that is correct. The 11,000 is
Sure.
just way off.
All good. So regardless, so if you're getting $15 leads and you're spending $30 a day and you're getting, an estimate and a half a day, 7 to 8 estimates a week on $30 a day. First thing I would do is go back to that math on what we talked about, and see if we can fill the gap just on Facebook, right? We don't want to. One thing I'm really cautious of is getting too what would I call it, like too leveraged on like one lead source. So if like 90% of your jobs are coming from Facebook, that would be a big risk. So I wouldn't want to do that. I can't remember what the number we said was, but like I think it was 26 estimates a month, right? So if we're doing 26 estimates a month, we want to get that, and then that's $21 per estimate. That's only $546. So like you should be there. But if you're getting that sick return on investment, I'd probably just like keep upping your budget, $45 a day, $60 a day, seeing what that does to your marketing return on investment. Like see if that kind of scales at the same rate. But then I'd also want to add on some offline marketing. So, we talk about job site marketing, doing like significant door hanger campaigns and hitting some doors, having some marketers go door to door. Like I'd probably get at least one marketer going door to door 3 days a week, either just around your current job sites or even just putting up door hangers. And then you probably don't, like for that level, for 500K, you probably only need one more thing, right? So you probably do Facebook ads, door to door, and probably look at like your GLSAs, your Google local service ads, and put $20, $30 a day into that. And I mean, with your average job size, even if it's close to, even if it's 7K, there's not much reason why you can't do 500K next year.
Yeah.
I guess this year, because this is gonna be posted in the new year. So,
right.
And then it's just about tracking, right? We need good data, and it sounds like there's probably a little work that you need to do on cleaning up some data, right?
Definitely.
So it's a little more organized. So, which leads come from which source. One thing that you can do is you can set up a lead source dashboard, and basically this can just be a a spreadsheet where the first column we have the lead sources. So we have Facebook, Google, referral, whatever, right? So we have all the lead sources, and then we have cost, how much we spent per month. Like, we'll do this monthly. So how much we spent per month, how many leads we got, how many estimates we did, how many sales we got, and then how much we booked, and then the corresponding percentages around that. And what we're doing here is we're tracking basically lead source efficiency. How much are we booking from Facebook? How much is the cost per lead? How much are we booking from Google? How much is that cost per lead? And if we look down at our marketing efficiency per source, that will give us the data that we need to decide, okay, we can scale Facebook. Okay, we can scale Google. Okay, we should stop doing door hangers, like, and make those marketing decisions based on, again, the numbers, which is what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. And that's, you love to do that all through the Google Sheets, because what I've been using is Drip Jobs. And when you input a new contact, a new lead, you can select where it comes from there. And then I found that that's a pretty decent way to keep track of those as well.
Okay, I haven't seen that feature on Drip Jobs. I know they got a ton of stuff. I like doing it on a spreadsheet because putting in the data and finding it and then putting in a spreadsheet yourself forces you to know it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then as you know the data, you start questioning it, and then you're able to make better decisions on it instead of just like a software spin it out for you. And maybe you look at it, maybe you don't. But if Drip Jobs does report on it effectively for you, then by all means use that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sense doubling up and making more work. So, is there like a lead source report that you can pull?
There is, I believe. Maybe there's not. I'm not terribly sure. I haven't saw that. But what I've been doing is I've just been seeing each client, where they're coming from, taking that through the process, and kind of just keeping a mental record of where they're coming from. So definitely,
nothing should be a mental record. There should be no mental records in business.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing about like scaling a company. Nothing can be in the owner's head, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can be doing things in your head, but like everything has to be documented on paper, recorded somewhere. Everything from how you paint a house to how you do a sales process to, like we're talking about lead and sales metrics.
Yeah, definitely. Need to get a lot better about the data, using the sheets better.
Yeah, it takes the feelings out of business.
Yeah.
And, like I said before, there's no place in business for feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard though, because business is stressful and, emotional sometimes, especially when we're dealing with potentially life-changing amounts of money, right? Booking that $50,000 job and like salivating at that $18,000 profit paycheck that you're going to make from it. And then finding out last minute that you lose it. Like that's, it's hard. It's gut wrenching, right?
Yeah.
That type of like emotional roller coaster. But you just like got to stay as level-headed as possible through business and try to leave your emotion out of it. That's going to allow you to make the best decisions.
Yeah, definitely. Just looking at the numbers and running with that will definitely do a lot better for me.
Yeah. Cost per lead from source, cost per estimate from source, cost per acquired job from source. And just, I'll put actually a template like that together. I'll remind me after this, and I'll get something like that put together for you to use if you want. But we should have a template like that. That'll just take a couple of minutes to put together and plug in. But I think that'd be valuable. Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right. So recruiting, marketing.
And then I guess let's talk about some production. So when it comes to production and having subs in my stead, delivering on what I'm selling to the client, what do you guys have for methods on that to make sure that you're communicating with the subs properly and making sure that you're getting your client the best possible product?
For sure. This is a tough question. It's a deep question. A lot of things going on here. But basically clarify, like, how do you hand off a job to a sub so the sub's complete it properly? Mm-hmm. Right. So number one, the salesperson needs to have a way to record all of this important information, the job information, the details, the needs, the requirements, the product, the timeline, the decision makers, like all of that needs to be recorded somewhere by the salesperson. And most of that can be done on the client's agreement, right? You use Drip Jobs, you can put in your custom notes, all of that should be in there. The next step is the, I'm just blanking on the paperwork name for it, but a work order. Basically, you send your subs a work order that outlines the project, the start date, the address, all of the details, and hopefully the subs can pick up paint on their way, or you can have it delivered or something like that. Mm-hmm. Before all of this happens, it's important to have a clear division of labor and responsibilities what is the sub's responsibility and what is your responsibility. Who's talking to the homeowner, who's doing the walkthrough, who's whose ladders are you using, who's, whatever, like all of those, who's collecting payment at the end of it, what's the number, what's the check say, who deals with upsells. So all of those, and change orders, all of those little requirements need to be agreed upon ahead of time. And that's kind of like why you do a solid onboarding and training period and expectations with subs, even because you want to make sure that you guys are on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about having that communication workflow so that a job can get started properly by the subs. So let's say the subs are handling it all, right? They handle customer communication from the day of the handoff. They handle picking up the paint. They handle all of that, right? So the work order should outline all of that, right? Here's the day that you need to pick up the paint. Here's the colors. Here's the amounts. Here's the account that you're going to use. Here's the homeowner's name. Here's the husband's name. Here's the kids' names. Here's when you need to show up and what you need to say. Here's the outline of the job. We're doing this. We're doing that. We're doing this. We're not doing that. And so all of that needs to be outlined. And then as the homeowner does the walkthrough with the lead painter, they have the contract in hand and they're walking through and they're checking it off and they're making sure that it's all, everyone's on the same page. And then, have some sort of two-way communication process back to the business owner to let you know that that's been completed.
Gotcha. So just making sure that handoff runs as smoothly as possible and just outlining it very well. Perfect. And
you
then
can also have like a job handoff phone call, right? Or meeting or a weekly meeting or something like that if they're doing lots of work for you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, even a phone call to kind of kick off each job or a phone call from the sales rep at the time of sending that work order over, just to explain the job with a little bit more context can be helpful.
Gotcha. And then I'd like to ask you the same about employees and how you like to run your training and manage production with them.
I mean, if we're like on a handoff, you'll have a crew of 2 or 3, and one of them will ideally be a job site manager or crew lead or foreman or whatever you want to call them. And that's the person you'll be communicating to. And it'll be similar to the work order, except instead of the work order, it'll just be the job details. Mm-hmm. Right. And so if the salesperson or the owner is no longer going to the job site and the foreman is the one setting up the job, it'll be very similar to how you hand off a job with a subcontractor in terms of communication. The only difference is that it won't be a work order. It'll be just a job handoff. Mm-hmm. Like here's the expectations. Here's how to get started. Here's what the homeowner's expecting. And you have a phone call about it to get started. Yeah. Does that?
Yeah. No, that answers it pretty well. It's just, the handoff is more so with the foreman, and then he communicates that with the painters and the other people on the site. And then for me, my foremen are responsible for maintaining the standard and making sure that we're representing our company appropriately. And then the painters just follow his lead and ask him any questions. He communicates with me the questions and seem to work pretty well so far. So
yeah, exactly. Ultimately, there's not a huge difference in how you treat them, painters versus, in-house versus subs, right? You still got to do the communication, the handoff, all that. It's just, there's some obviously slight differences, but at the end of the day, the homeowner's paying you to own the job, to be responsible for the outcome. And regardless of the contractual relationship between the people on site, it's your responsibility to make sure that happens well.
Yeah, definitely.
Sweet, man. Anything else, or do you feel like that's enough for you to get started today?
I think that's more than plenty. I mean, I'm definitely pretty excited to start cracking into the data and start being more organized with that. So
yeah, and I'll get this lead tracker set up. And hey, anyone listening, you made it to the end here today. If you want a copy of this lead tracker, how are we gonna do it? Send me an email. Send the email into hello@paintergrowth.com, hello@paintergrowth.com, and just call it lead tracker, and I'll get you a copy of this this marketing tracker thing. But Maddox, thanks for coming today, man. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's been a good time. It's been very educational.
Yeah, hopefully you got something out of it. I enjoyed our chat, and you asked great questions. So let's crush the new year. Right now it's December 29th. I don't know exactly when this is going to post, next Friday or the Friday after that, but everyone have a great new year, and let's get after it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Thanks, Mike. Have a good one.
Peace.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.